Jorge Riopedre. Welcome to Speak Up St. Louis.
Thanks for having me on, Quinton. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is really exciting, especially, from us meeting in 2020 and then right before the pandemic to having this opportunity to sit down now, and really excited to hear about all the great things that are happening with the work that you're doing, the Delmar DevINe, et cetera. And so, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
I guess to start us off, if you don't mind telling folks who you are and some of the work that you're doing right now.
Sure. I'm Jorge Riopedre. I'm the executive director of Delmar DevINe. Started that position at late 2019, right before the pandemic started, as you said. And now here we are 3.5 years later, and I'm guiding this organization, which is the brainchild of Maxine Clark, the founder of Build-A-Bear. She made this project possible, and in short, this project is having taken the former campus of St. Luke's Hospital that was first constructed in 1904, and by 2014 was completely derelict, unfortunately. And we bought the property, completely renovated it, and now it's basically a nonprofit accelerator. We have 33 nonprofits housed in the campus that we provide a variety of support services for, in addition to 18,000 square feet of shared space that reduces costs and encourages collaboration. So we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish there, what we are accomplishing, how much the nonprofits how well they are doing when they're at Delmar DevINe. And the real next phase here, running at the same time, is our work with communities living north of Delmar Boulevard. Mm-hmm. So that, when we talk about the Delmar divide, that we are doing our small part to bridge that divide. And some of the ways we're doing that is work we are doing with and for the community with a variety of programs that we do on the campus with partners. I think as we talk here, I think a couple words you're going to hear me say a lot is partnership and collaboration. Mm-hmm. That's really what the project is all about.
That's really awesome. And I guess first, congrats on making it through the pandemic, because I can imagine.
Every gray hair on my head, man, is from the pandemic and this right. and the last 3 years.
So I guess, so before we really get into that, because you're talking about a very large project. This is not a small undertaking by any stretch of the imagination. And so I guess for folks that are within the project management world that might feel the same way that you do, how did you navigate it to be able to get here to this point 3 years later?
With tremendous difficulty and a lot of help, because certainly I came into the job not knowing really anything about construction. I would say that I was hired because of my expertise in nonprofit management, in fundraising, in building partnerships. Right. That I'm pretty good at, but construction, really not a clue. And so managing that entire process was really getting a lot of help from people at Washington University, from consultants and collaborators who helped me better understand the process, who, when I really didn't know what I was doing, came in and advised me. Mm-hmm. And then again, just worked in partnership through those 3 years, looking at problems as they came up and facing them as they came up, not trying to look too far ahead, and forgetting what happened yesterday right away so I could focus on what was happening today. And so because I had a lot of people holding my hand, and because I'm a hard worker, I and my colleagues were able to navigate all the pitfalls that happen, because when you start taking apart a building from 1904, right, you're going to find some strange stuff. And so every day was a bit of an adventure. We had no idea that these columns were there. We thought we were going to use the room for this, but these columns make it impossible, so now we're going to use it for that. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of stuff on the fly. But luckily, again, hard work and collaboration got us to where we are.
I think that's really cool, just in the sense of how you're talking about the flexibility needed for something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously, any project, especially when it's connected to Maxine Clark's name, is in the limelight. People want to know what's happening, and obviously because of her track record, people want to see the results that come from it.
Oh
as
yeah,
well,
no doubt about it. I mean, success was expected, right?
Right.
And I was not going to accept anything else. Not only for my professional pride, my desire to do something impactful for the community, and because I've known Maxine for a long time, and there was just no way I was gonna let her down.
Small but mighty warrior, that is for sure.
Indeed.
And so I guess, especially when you talk about community impact, it's because when I was just looking into the background of what you're doing, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but then also Casa de Salud. So it's very interesting to see the non-traditional background without, especially when you're talking about construction and really being able to say, okay, being able to say I have a good sense of the community, and also in the sense of nonprofit leadership, and being able to merge those things together to be able now to support what you were saying, 30 nonprofits?
33, yep.
33 nonprofits, including your own, which is the
Delmar. 30, yeah, we're 34. You're right about that.
So you got to make sure you got to get the number right next time.
That's an excellent point.
So yeah, and so I think that is really amazing how you've been able to do that. And so I guess I'm really curious, on outside of the columns, what's the biggest surprise that you found when going through the construction phase of the program of we didn't think that was going to be there?
Boy, I tell you, it's hard to say because there were so many. I mean, just stuff that's coming off the top of my head, like the basement, which was the morgue, and it kept filling up with water, and that's a problem,
right.
And what we're going to do about that, and how we're going to control the water, and how we were going to abate that whole section. That was a lot of discussion. Materials in general that had to be abated, that had been there forever, and that would, if not taken care of, pose a health hazard. How are we going to deal with that? Who was going to pay for all that? How that was going to get done? These were ongoing discussions. Again, going back to rooms at the one room that we thought we were going to use as an auditorium, it became clear that it could not be used as an auditorium. Then we were going to use it as our co-working center. And because of various pieces of the structure, we couldn't use it as the co-working, so it got moved over there. It almost seemed like every other week we were going back to the architects and redrawing what the original map had been,
right.
To accommodate what Clayco was excavating and finding as it went along. This is what I said. It was a lot of people working hand in hand here, because you had to have a lot of fluidity. You had to have a lot of ability to turn on a dime while staying on budget to face the challenges that came from this amount of undertaking, and come up with something close to what was originally planned.
Right. And you had touched on it a little bit earlier. You talked about it, how it was originally built in 1904,
yep.
St. Luke's Hospital. Can you speak to the transitions that the building has had over time? Because at first, in 1904, it was something totally different before it got to even St. Luke's Hospital, because I think it speaks to the larger conversation of the impact of how you all are changing and transforming this space into something new.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let me start by saying that it would have been an order of magnitude cheaper to have torn the building down and started from scratch. This was the hardest, most expensive way to go, the way that we did it. But it was incredibly important to Maxine and to everyone who was working with her that the legacy of the building, of what it was, be respected, a place of healing, right? 1904, at the time of the World's Fair, opened as a premier hospital, served tens of thousands of people. It's amazing how many people I have now met who either they themselves were born in the hospital, their parents were born in the hospital, or their children were born in the hospital. In some level, while it was St. Luke's or when it was regional, but at some point in the hospital's history, up until when it ceased being a hospital, in the early 2000s, that it was a place where people came together for very, very important life events around birth, around life, around death. And so to honor that and its history and what it meant to that neighborhood was extremely, extremely important to us. And so Maxine has made a point of emphasis saying that now with Delmar DevINe having occupied the space, we honor what it was and we celebrate what it will again be as a place of bringing people together. That again is why all the cost and all the difficulty was worth it, as opposed to having torn it down, which would have been easier, but would not have been the right thing to do.
For sure. And I think to what you were saying too, just the level of community connection to that building. So being able to respect that and for people to be able to see the building in a new light after it has sat empty for so long, I think speaks to the work that you all are doing as well.
Yeah, let me quickly tell you that we had a group of the class of 1956 of nurses come through who had worked at St. Luke's and came through, and they were like, "Oh, there's where our offices were. Here's where we ate lunch. There was the kitchen. The doctors would all sit over here, and we, the nurses, we would sit all over there. Here's the door that Jimmy Hoffa came through as he came in to go to the second floor where his daughter was giving birth to his grandchild." They told all kinds of stories about the. One nurse was talking about how at one point she said like the early 1960s, part of the hospital caught on fire, and everybody was trying to put out the fire, but she was leaving to go get married, and so she just like, "I'm sorry, I got to go," and walked out onto Delmar Boulevard, got in a car, and drove away, even though the hospital was partially on fire.
There are priorities.
So it's amazing to have these folks come through and have told us a lot of the history that they personally experienced in the hospital.
For sure. And so moving from that history to, you all have opened the building now. When was it opened?
We officially opened on January 1st, 2022. We began operating with actual tenants in August of 2021.
Okay, so 2021 till now. What I'm curious about is when you all were thinking about the building, because obviously on the website and hearing you talk about it also as well as Ms. Maxine Clark, really talking about the reasoning for bringing nonprofits together in that space. Because quite honestly, I mean, you all could have done anything with the space. It could have been a new business incubator. Sure. It could have been just all, affordable housing. It could have been whatever you wanted to be. So what was the purpose around the social agency part that you all felt very strongly about committing to?
Yeah, no, so I think it's really safe to say that nonprofits are being asked to do a lot more with a lot less. They are stepping into roles that certainly, in my opinion, government used to and should fill, but has retreated from. And so they are filling sometimes gigantic gaps, nonprofits are, in the social safety net, in just the support of various structures of society. And so as we ask nonprofits to do more, we have to give them some kind of support, or either they'll fail or they won't be as effective as they need to be. And because that has become such an important dynamic in maintaining stability in neighborhoods, in regions, in parts of our society, then it was certainly Maxine's opinion, mine and mine as well, that to focus on the support of nonprofits who could then do a better job of serving the tens of thousands of people that they serve was a very worthwhile endeavor. And that's what it's come to be, right? That we are assisting them to do their jobs better. And then again, an important point is that we're really trying to encourage collaboration, because the problems and the challenges are so large, are so systemic, that no one agency, no matter how good it is, can possibly address any given problem by itself. The answer, or at least the best answer that we have, is for nonprofits to work together, to pull resources, to pull expertise, and by doing so have better results. And so that's one of the key components of Delmar DevINe. It's not just that we have the nonprofits there and that we support them. That's the baseline. Right. But then how do we help them work together so that they can serve more people better?
And I like that idea of collaboration because I think, and you've probably heard the conversation a lot too, that St. Louis has a lot of nonprofits that do the exact
Over
same.
16,000. Yep.
How many?
Over 16,000.
16,000.
Which is actually, according to a report from UMSL, is actually 10% down from 5 years ago. So we've actually seen a dip.
So
even so, it's still around 16,000.
Mm-hmm. And so I think to what you're saying too about the collaboration aspect, because no social issue that we're experiencing right now is in a vacuum.
Right.
Everything is interconnected to all these other issues. So like when I think about like the work that I do with within food insecurity, like that's not just food insecurity, it's food security and.
Sure.
And so I think, so are there any examples that you have seen just from the time of having these nonprofits in there to where you've seen that collaboration and that shift of understanding that it's not about the grant dollars that I get, but it's about how we collectively work together to be able to move the needle forward?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, you've had several of our nonprofits that work together to put together coping kits for girls ages grades 4 through 10 to help them with anxiety and depression. You had 2 of our nonprofits that work together around sleep safety, so infants trying to avoid SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. We have 2 of our agencies that are working now on creating financial products for North City residents. 4 of us are working together on an older adult enrichment program for older adults in North City. So again, these are just a few examples, just come off the top of my head, that are starting to happen to work collectively. This is still, I want to make sure that I emphasize, because I don't want to be so Pollyanna-ish about it, that this is going to take time. This is not easy. It's like, oh, hey, let's collaborate.
Right.
That ain't it. If that was it, it would be like we wouldn't be emphasizing it. It would be already happening all the time. It doesn't, because you just, a moment ago, you talked about how, oh, it's not just my grant dollar. Well, but that's a tough mindset to break down. The idea that it's not a zero-sum game, that if I have to protect my data from yours, I have to protect my my resources, my skill from you, because otherwise I might not get a grant, and then I don't have the money to operate. That is a tough situation to break down, to change the mindset to agencies thinking about how do we grow the pie instead of defend the pie. And I'll just say a quick addendum to that there's a two-way street there. The funders, and if you're listening, funders, that's got to be from the funding side as well. Can't just blame the nonprofits there. Right. If funders take a stance where it is, we'll fund you, and if we fund this one agency, we will not fund another, then you're exacerbating that mentality. If we believe, and many funders say they do, that collaboration is the way forward, then the funding community also has to act in such a way that does break down those barriers, that makes it easier for Delmar DevINe to actually successfully encourage the nonprofits to work together, because they will start to feel that it's not a zero-sum game. So it's a tricky situation there that is going to take a lot of work to change it. You can't wave the magic wand and just have collaboration happen.
For sure. And I think sometimes I find, at least myself personally, find difficulty in that, in the sense of when I'm thinking about nonprofits and it being a mission-driven organization. And I guess that thought about, okay, our goal is to end something, is to solve it. Like, right. We're here to build solutions to whatever social issue that we're trying to address. And so and I guess, so that's something that I've been really thinking about is, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean to be, or what does it mean to have purpose, mission-driven decisions? And to what end? So are we here to more so solve the problem, or are we here to allow it to just continue to linger in that sense? And so I think sometimes that's challenging for me, in the sense of, You know, if we all say that we want a better St. Louis, or if we all say that we want to have this, we want to change this in St. Louis, then there has to be a level of, you know, it's not about the I, it's about the we.
Oh, and I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And our job as staff and board members, et cetera, of nonprofits is not to perpetuate our own jobs. I mean, we're not going to have jobs and security anytime soon, unfortunately, because, as I said to you a few minutes ago, the problems are so pervasive, and actors in the corporate and governmental sectors that I think should be doing some effort aren't. Right. So I don't think we have to worry about that in particular. Having said that, the purpose is not to maintain our jobs or to maintain the nonprofit per se. It is to the best of our ability, to serve people and solve problems. And if the time comes when we aren't doing that anymore, either because the problem has wonderfully been brought under control, or we are no longer doing a good enough job at it, then we shouldn't exist. Then again, it's I think a wrong way of looking at it. If we're thinking about, well, how do we simply support the nonprofit sector? That's not really the point. It's how do we support the nonprofit sector to do its job? And those are not the exact same things.
Right. And so within the Delmar DevINe, you know, you talked about the nonprofit sector. You also have is it low income housing or is it affordable housing?
So it's neither.
Okay.
We have 150 units, 18 of which are affordable housing. The rest are market rate.
Okay. So then you have that part as well too. But then you all have been growing the business aspect in regards to the storefronts as well too. So I know that there's been a pharmacy. You know, we talked about the Deli DivINe as well too.
Right. Well, let me tell you that I'm really happy with that storefront retail section because I think we really made a wonderful and still ongoing effort to listen to what people, especially in the West End, in 63112, where we reside, north of Delmar Boulevard, to hear what they wanted us to do. And so, for example, the pharmacy. Residents of the West End said, we want more options around being able to see a doctor or healthcare provider without an appointment for a case that wasn't an emergency. So that's why we worked on the pharmacy, and Marcus Howard answered the call, and now we have the first black-owned pharmacy in the city in 50 years. Wow. And they're there, and Marcus is there because he wants to serve the community and because the community said to us, that's what we want. Then on top of that, Marcus, with our assistance, brokered a partnership with SSM. So now SSM has an urgent care within the pharmacy. So you, as a community member, can now go get culturally sensitive and appropriate assistance from a pharmacist and also get a non-emergency healthcare appointment, which is what the community said that they wanted. They said that they wanted more options around finance. We have the first Edward Jones north of Delmar Boulevard. We have St. Louis Community Credit Union there, which is already, I believe they had told me they've already opened more than 75 accounts and closed over $400,000 in loans for North City. And those two organizations are now getting ready to collaborate on another project for North City. So when we opened that, we opened with intentionality. We didn't just say, you know, hey, let's see who wants to pay us rent. Let's see who we can get in there. No, we listened to what community members said they wanted, and we acted on it. So that's why I'm particularly excited about that. The Deli DivINe is, again, specifically because Maxine believed that if you want to change the trajectory of an area, you need density of people. You need people wanting to come to that area. You need economic activity. You need foot traffic. So Maxine's idea was, let's open a restaurant that will give people who do not live north of Delmar Boulevard a reason to come there, because too many people, unfortunately, go, I'm not going north of Delmar Boulevard. Well, now the deli is we've gotten people from like deep into West County that I'm pretty sure would not have come north of Delmar Boulevard. And now they are coming and going, look, this is a great neighborhood. And look what's happening. Look at the energy that's happening here. Looking at the development that's going on around us. So the deli is, besides serving, I think, great food, I'm there too often actually, it is serving a purpose to create a nexus around people from different areas of St. Louis coming in. Because I don't know if you've read the 230 jobs report from Greater STL, and one of the things that really struck me is that it said that if we cannot have an economy that fully envelops North City, then St. Louis is always going to be an also-ran, right? Mm-hmm. Not only is it the right thing to do, that goes without saying, but let's toss that out for a second. Just look at economic self-interest. If North City is abandoned, we will never be competitive. And so we've got to come together and change this. And so Delmar DevINe is doing its little piece to try and make that real.
For sure. I would say you're doing more than a little, because I think because of what you all are doing, now there will be other things that will be able to build and prosper beyond those walls as well too. And so I think it's really exciting.
We certainly hope so.
Real quick, before I leave the Deli DivIne question, best sandwich. What you getting there when you walk in?
The Mannix. I said the man. The Manic is what I get when I see the sandwich. The Mannix. It is basically a BLT, but then on top of the sandwich, he toothpicks 2 turkey hot dogs on top of the sandwich, and then I wash it down with a glass of chocolate milk.
That is very interesting. Now you all know, if you want Jorge's attention, you need to go get him that type of sandwich.
Come on down to the deli.
You will have a meeting with him in a heartbeat if you bring a sandwich.
But I tell you what, like the pastrami, the corned beef sandwiches, the staples.
Yeah.
They're all pretty darn good. I'm working my way through the menu.
That's awesome. And shout out to the folks that are working there at the Deli DivIne, because Jorge is obviously raving about you all right now. So speaking to what you were talking about, North City, because I think, obviously the work that you all are doing is having an impact, obviously, beyond the Delmar DevIne, but in particular the West End. And before we get into the Delmar DevIne, I'm really curious on your thoughts on, because I guess when you're looking at things that are happening, north of Delmar, North St. Louis City, probably going all the way down Delmar, you're seeing the pockets of development that are happening. So, you have the, oh my goodness, I blank on it as soon as I want to talk about it. What's the art thing that's right down the street from the Delmar DevIne? Craft Alliance.
Craft Alliance, yeah. And Third Degree Glass, and the makers.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you get farther down as well too, and you're talking about NGA and all of these. So you're having all these different pockets that are happening. Not saying that you all have to or are responsible to, but how do we make sure that these things are connected in the sense of, and I know that's a much larger question, and because you're talking about a lot of different players in the game.
It is, and you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that makes it difficult is how many different players are in the game. That by itself makes it difficult to coordinate. Not everyone has the same agenda. Not everyone has the same end game in mind, right? Although you got to dance with who brung you, right? I mean, I would rather have not everyone have as clear an agenda as we do, for example, but go ahead and start working there so that we do have more influx of economic activity. One of the things that Maxine is doing in all her spare time is, in fact, trying to talk to as many people, build as many relationships as possible, so that there is what coordination there can be, right? So rather than leave it totally to chance, she is really trying to build relationships with these folks so there is some kind of thought process. I don't know, this is just me saying this, I don't know that we're going to get to anything that resembles a master plan. I don't know that's going to happen. But I guess, I like to talk about that you have to practice the art of the possible. And I think that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, because I've always been curious about, the intentionality and the relationship between everything that kind of goes on at one time, and seeing about how does, how do we make sure that, especially when we're talking about North St. Louis City, we could talk about St. Louis in general,
Sure.
but for this conversation, North St. Louis City, and understanding the disinvestment that has happened over the years, and then all of a sudden new things are coming in, and making sure that we're intentional about what this process looks like, not only for the community members that are currently living there, but also to the future of what St. Louis
No, you're
wants to
absolutely
be.
right. And I think that's why groups like, just two that snapped to my mind immediately, Delmar Collaborative and Delmar Corridor. So I think more of those organizations are popping up, community-driven organizations that are trying to take their own power and go, we're going to do what we can to try and put that intentionality at least into part of the conversation, right? And I think it's going to take, as wonderful and as dynamic and as relentless as Maxine is, it's going to take...
It's more than her.
Yeah, it's going to take community groups like this feeling empowered to activate themselves and having ongoing conversations.
And so, in regards to ongoing conversations, we also talked some about the Delmar Divide, which is always has been an ongoing conversation, whether you're talking about locally or nationally, especially for the work and especially where you all are located, because I would assume most folks know what it is, but I'm not going to make that assumption. Do you want to break down for folks what the Delmar Divide is and why, I think one, what it is, but also two, the importance of why the Delmar Divide is where it's at.
Yeah.
In regards to that as well, too.
The Delmar Divide, just to give the elevator speech about it, is something that happened over the course of 80, 90 years as racial covenants got put in and segregationist policies got put in that forced African Americans to live in that area, and what folks were white there to move out. And that was unfortunately done with a lot of intentionality. It is part of I'll be blunt, part of the racist legacy of St. Louis. And because of those laws and covenants that got put in, problems exacerbate themselves, right? When something becomes a problem and is not treated, it becomes a bigger problem. That's the way of things. And so you had ever more lack of education, lack of economic opportunity, lack of interaction with other parts of St. Louis. And so we can't be surprised that now on one side of Delmar, in the north, you have high crime rates, generally speaking. You have high crime rates, low education, high poverty. And on the south side of Delmar, you have like the Central West End. It's white, it's relatively rich, it's highly educated, and low crime, high ownership value. That did not happen by accident. And so why is Delmar DevINe and anything else happening that tries to bridge the divide important is because that is not a sustainable dynamic. When Jason Purnell put out his report For the Sake of All, about 15 years ago now, and you see that two zip codes divided by less than 10 miles of each other have a 20-year difference in life expectancy. That's immoral. It's immoral. A society can't accept that and still be anything that resembles a moral society. And so I remember the former CEO, I'm blanking on his name right now, of Express Scripts before it was bought by Cigna. I was at a conference, a diversity conference, where he was talking. He said, if you can point a line from everything that's wrong in St. Louis to that dynamic. If you could fix that, people would be clamoring to come to St. Louis with all of the natural resources we have. But we can't fix that, and so here we are where we are. And so that is why I think that bridging that divide is so imperatively important from an economic and a moral standpoint.
It was interesting because I'm a part of an art group, and one of the individuals from the group, talked about Delmar, and it was, in a very in a very visual way. She didn't call it Delmar just like the Delmar DevINe. She calls it River Delmar because of how much of a difference it is, not only from one side to the other, but traversing it from one side to the other as well too, and understanding there is social implications, there are different cultural implications, and it's just very interesting how all these things are wrapped up in our history. And so that's why I guess I asked about that, because I think the importance of having projects and having institutions like the Delmar DevINe, where they're located at, is really critical in regards to not only how we understand and I think that's why I also asked about the building, because the building itself has seen a lot of different changes in policies and who's lived there, who could be able to access the healthcare as well too. And so I think all those things matter in regards to how you all are transforming not just the physical building, because it's more than just the physical building. It's the idea of what can happen beyond this when we actually work together.
I could have said it better myself. That's exactly what we're trying to do. To the extent that we are successful, we hope that we will see incremental changes. I mean, they're going to be incremental, right? Because it took us 80 years to get to where we are. It's not going to change dramatically in 1 or 2 years. We allowed the situation to get too deep. So it's going to be hard work to change the dynamics that got us here. But if you just always keep saying, well, it's hard, it's too hard, then nothing ever happens. You got to start somewhere. And so, yes, it will be hard, but we and people who are working with us and who are like-minded to us believe that this is a start.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm here for that hard work. I personally want to see St. Louis the way that it's supposed to be. And I think we have the people here, we have the individuals that can make that change. You know, I'm not saying leaps and bounds, because sometimes that doesn't happen, and it certainly doesn't happen overnight, but one foot in front of the other. And I think a part of that is that acknowledgement of not only what has happened, but really being able to say, okay, how do we understand what has happened and make sure that we put the things in place to make sure that we have the community that we all dream about.
That's right. That's exactly correct.
So I mean, really appreciate, the work that you all are doing there, because it is that step in the right direction. But then I also have to ask too, with all these things that you're doing, what do you do outside of this? This seems very, this is like, it's, as much as it is exciting in regards to, like seeing nonprofits doing their thing, flourishing, collaborating, working against the grain, if I would say as well too. Like, what do you do outside of this to keep all this kind of balanced out?
Well, my wife would tell you that I don't balance it enough. She would definitely tell you that. No, you know what? Seriously, just being with my family, that's what my number one thing. Now I'm just basking in the young lady that my daughter is becoming. I'm so proud of her. She's going towards the end of her studies. I really can't tell you enough how proud I am of her, and how much I think she and the people around her, her friends, how hell-bent they are on saying we're going to make a change here. That gives me a tremendous amount of hope. And then beyond that, I really enjoy reading. I love soccer. So for the first 3 years of the league, I was an MLS referee. That was 96 through 98. So really enjoyed going to the games, seeing soccer now, because when I was the referee back then, there were like, I believe, 10 teams in the league, and it was a very, very small and, shall we say, not stable league. And now look at City here, the 20-plus team, 24, 26 teams in the league. They struck a deal with Apple. Right. I mean,
Messi's coming to the
Messi's. I'm praying to God, so July 15th is the day that Miami plays in St. Louis. I'm just praying that Messi's on the team by then.
You think it's going to happen?
My bet, 50-50.
50-50?
50-50.
Oh, my God. So St. Louis is going to be packed.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Like, that will probably be they're going to set a, I don't know what the record is for like how many people have come like from out of St. Louis to a game.
They're going to have a tough time, though. The stadium's sold out every game.
So that's funny. Like, we're not just thinking about infrastructure for St. Louis. We have to think about infrastructure for when Messi comes to St. Louis. That is another type of following there.
Yeah, you know, maybe I should suggest to Ben Paremba, who's the owner of the deli, that he should get into the soccer stadium and serve this food there.
Serve some sandwiches, because I mean they're going to be on low supply. Everything's going things are going to be wiped out around it. So we'll all have to keep our eyes out for breaking news to make sure that when Messi comes, we are all at the game.
That's right.
Have you been to some of the city games yet?
Oh, I'm a season ticket holder.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. No, I love soccer is my sport. I refereed it for 33 years. I played it from the time I was 9.
Mm-hmm.
I played. It's just always a sport that's meant a lot to me. And love the world. I wish I could have gone personally, but that World Cup final was one of the greatest games I've ever seen played. It's been a good year for soccer.
Right. Ooh, World Cup. Doesn't that come to? Well, I don't know if they're coming to St. Louis. They're probably going to Kansas City.
No, Kansas City. But I'll be there.
Oh. But what got you into like being a referee? Like, I would have never imagined like. Yeah.
You know what's funny is that I played, right, as I just said to you, and my parents divorced early on, and so my mom had to work on Saturdays, so she dropped me off from my game in the morning, and then I'd have to stay there, you know, a few hours after my game till she could come and pick me up.
Yeah.
And one day I'm just sitting there, and another game's about to start, and a referee comes onto the field and says, "Hey, can you, if I give you this flag, can you call in and out of bounds for me?" And says, "I'll give you a Coke." And I'm like, "Sure." And I got out there with my little flag, and oh my God, I loved it. I loved it. It was, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so I took classes. By the age of 13, I was a referee, and then I quit playing at 15 because I just enjoyed refereeing too much. And I was doing, I'm not kidding, I was doing 14 or 15 games a week. Now, of course, I was a teenager then, right?
You were hooked, though.
I had energy. But, oh, yeah, I was refereeing my rear end off, and I just enjoyed every last second of it. And it made my love for soccer even more so, because I could be such an integral part of the game.
So outside of the city here, favorite team, favorite player?
Oh, well, I hate to give the typical answer, but Barcelona is such a
Historic.
It's such an incredible team,
historic.
Right?
There's nothing wrong with that.
So I love them. So many of the, well, now they're starting to retire, but so many of the players in Barcelona were players for the Spanish national team, which my family is originally was from Cuba, but before Cuba from Spain. And so I had a lot of love for the Spanish national team, and again, so many of their key players played for Barcelona. So yeah, I've always enjoyed watching them, and then just as it's hard to beat Messi as a pure, someone who's just a joy to watch on the field. So I'm not sure that I would tell you that I have a favorite player, but if you forced me to pick one, I'd go with Messi, just because of what he can do on a field that no one else can.
Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. So 50-50 chance he comes.
50-50.
Trey, we're going to have to find our way into that stadium, too, because those tickets going to sell like Taylor Swift tickets.
Oh, my God.
They're going to be out in a second.
My wife was saying, I bet, man, but I told her, no, be clear, I'm going to that game. She said, boy, you could probably sell that ticket for some money.
Right.
And I'm like, I probably could, but I'm going to the game.
You set the date, so there's no mistakes about where you're going to be
July 15,
at.
I'm there.
Awesome. So real quick, how can folks stay up to date with the Delmar DevINe?
Go to DelmarDevINe.com, and first, just look at the website, and secondly, subscribe to our newsletter. We won't share your email address with anybody, and that is like the most comprehensive look at what's going on. And of course, we also have the necessary channels on Facebook and Twitter, so you can also be looking there. We're promoting what's going on there on a daily basis.
Nice. And then
and come volunteer. Come volunteer, which you can find out more information for or sign up at the website as we get more events, more stuff happening at Delmar DevINe. We just can't afford to hire 30 employees. So we really need volunteers. So I encourage anyone who's interested in being part of this effort to come talk to us.
For sure. And then for the final question, it is a two-part question that we ask every guest. You'll pass it with flying colors.
Let's see. I don't know. You're putting me under some pressure here, Quinton.
The first part is, one, what do you love most about St. Louis? And the second part is, what do you most want to see change?
What do I love most about St. Louis? The food and the people.
Outside of the Deli DivIne.
No. The people, I talk to friends in San Francisco and in Chicago and New York and, the food. I'm like, you guys, seriously, they don't believe me. You got nothing on us. The restaurants here are ridiculously good. I mean, and a wide range of cuisines. I love the food here. And the people, St. Louis has its issues, as we've been discussing, but by and large, people are Midwestern friendly here. It's very easy to get along with people. It's easy to fall in with people and just talk and have a good time and just feel, the old saw is a great place to raise a family, and that's how it was for my family. I've enjoyed living here. I enjoyed raising my daughter here. So the food and people are my two favorite things about St. Louis. What would I like to change? Everything we've been talking about, right? It's if we have so much potential as a city, as a region. We're bursting at the seams with potential. And if we could make some of the changes we've talked about, then St. Louis could really come into its own. And it's funny because you a minute ago you said about acknowledging, and I really think that we give that short shrift. I think one of the problems, and this is for the United States as well, right? That we won't acknowledge what happened. We don't acknowledge that slavery was a thing, that there has been systemic racism for the entire history of the country. And because we don't acknowledge it, right? What's the old saw is the first step in fixing a problem is acknowledging you have a problem, right? Yeah. If you can't acknowledge it, it's impossible to fix. And sometimes folks here, like, they know it. That's not. Yeah, it was a problem, but it's different now. And we got to acknowledge that the legacy of the past is with us today. If we can acknowledge it, then we can do something about it.
For sure, and thank you for sharing that. The one word I took from that was harnessing, and I think that's just a really powerful word. And so, for all that you all are doing down there at the Delmar DevINe, whether it's the harnessing of that, just like that, harnessing the energy of St. Louis, whether it be nonprofits, people coming down to the Delmar DevINe, and all the other things, the other social services that are happening there. Thank you all for doing that, because I think those are the right steps if we're going to be able to say that we are going to not only address, but really love St. Louis the way that it's supposed to be loved.
It's a privilege.
Yep. So thank you so much, Jorge, for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Quinton.